As the clock strikes 7, Eric will share how to make static dynamic with the utmost care. With Blazer's might and open source grace, he'll guide you through this digital race. Eric, hello. So you're on double duty today.
Yes, long time no see, Stace.
2 seconds. I just lost my earpiece, so I can't hear a thing right now.
I said, can you hear me?
No, kind of. Let me try the other ear. Otherwise, I'll have to go to my different headphones. You were right. In-ear headphones for a 6-hour conference. Bad idea.
Yeah. Anyways, I am a replacement for Jessica, who is currently unavailable. She was supposed to be doing this hosting thing, and I was supposed to be only presenting. But instead
I wrote you in for the entire day.
Duty.
But yeah, it's I say, get well soon, Jess. We miss you, but looking after yourself is absolute number one that has to be done.
Yeah, I spoke slightly or quickly with her earlier today, and she's doing all right, everything considered.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Hoping for the best there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now you get to have fun yourself, and you've got your own talk to do as well as the hosting.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is all based on something that you were trying to do.
I was going to build a personal website, and I wasn't really happy with what could be done with the normal options available. So I decided to abuse the system just a tiny bit.
Just a tiny little bit. This is how we discover how things work well.
Exactly. So I was going to say that if you do everything that I'm about to show you, you're doing it wrong. I've built this presentation to be as generic as possible.
Yeah.
It'll work with every framework, big asterisk there. But most often some frameworks or the frameworks have a better way of doing a specific thing. But this covers everything. Right?
Which is also, so it's a really open-ended option.
Exactly, very open-ended. And then you replace the bits that don't fit your framework with something better.
Yeah. And we have the wonderful comment here from Dukasoft, but I'm already doing it wrong.
Well, let's help him do it better then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, you're a couple of minutes early, but I think that we can probably get away with that.
Yeah, I hope so.
So you're going to share. I'm going to drop off the screen, and then you're not going to be covered by Dartmeode in his ghost outfit.
Mm-hmm.
I will, speak to you in about 45 minutes.
Well,
stage is yours.
Listen to me until then. So, turning the dynamic static, simplifying web delivery. Let's start out with some slight, quick glossary words here. Let me make sure that I'm in the right focus. So there are two main types of websites, really. You have static pages, which is what we're trying to do today. They are pre-rendered, pure HTML, CSS, and script. They are unchanging, again, HTML, and they are delivered quickly. They are insanely fast because, there's no compute. You also have dynamic pages, which are runtime generated. We're talking things like, normal web shops, CMS systems, basically 99% of the websites out there, also including WordPress, Umbraco, different CMS systems. They can contain logic code to make decisions about what we're going to show. They can be updated like on the clock. They can actually get the current time and decide what they want to show. Unfortunately, they depend on a server. And we don't really have that kind of server in static web apps. We do have Azure Functions, and I'll be covering that in a moment. So we have dynamic sites on SWA, which I just said you couldn't do. Well, you can with a with an asterisk. You can do single-page applications of different types. We're talking Blazor, WebAssembly, we're talking Angular, Vue, Next, all the others, right? React. And if you want them to be dynamic, they will do most often REST calls against some kind of backend. And that could be Azure Functions. That could be directly against an external data source. They don't have any dynamic content built in, but they can run logic both on the client computer and in functions. The problem here is that, we'll get to that. Sorry. Yeah, but they use external data sources. A lot of people use Medium for this. It's a third-party blogging platform, and you can fairly easily import data from there into your own system using either direct calls from your SPA or via an Azure function as an intermediary. The problem there, and I'll get to that in a second, as said, let me introduce myself. I'm Eric. You can see my boss there on the side. She is also sleeping right there. I am the author of the extension NoDocs and the, for giggles, .NET Tool, .NET Bacon, if anyone feels like having some fresh ASCII bacon or possibly some fried eggs. It's a great thing. I'm on every week, sometimes multiple times a week, as a live coder on Twitch. I'm a Telerik champion, which I was awarded earlier this year. I'm a member of the board at SweetHug, solo contractor, and I am an expert at not finishing what I start. I start tons of projects and then they kind of just fall off to the wayside. If you want an example of that, check my GitHub. So, SPAs. What does Google see? That's a big question. Google can see nothing, more or less. Google will run some scripts, but not all of them. It doesn't run WASM at all, unfortunately. But yeah, it can run some scripts, but in general, if you start doing REST calls, you're more or less screwed. What you can do when it visits a page, you can, if you're running on the server, Blazor server, you can modify the title and the meta description because that goes on the first call into the DOM and updates it. Problem here is that no one cares about the meta description when you're working with SEO and being able to be found. It helps you decide what your search result looks like, but it won't help you get found based on search queries. Way back when, we could use meta keywords and meta descriptions, but then some people started being bad people, and bad people make it so we can't have nice things anymore. So we have a couple of options for static if we disregard SPAs, because we want SEO good. So you can hack your own. That means manually creating all the HTML pages. You need to make sure that when you add something new to a page or add a new page, you update everywhere where that's referenced. If you change the description or a short or a blurb or whatever you want to call it, you have to go into everywhere where that post is listed and update that. It is not a fun process. Static site generators, on the other hand, they're definitely a better option, but they use different data files for content. And I'd like to see someone give a marketing department a markdown document and tell them to fill that out, or give them a JSON file or an XML file or whatever kind of format you want. A lot of people like YAML. I don't think I've seen anyone do a static site generator using YAML, but now that I said it, there's probably one on the way. On the plus side, it does all the building of pages, lists. It constructs the page like a total package and make sure that everything is it's called atomic. Now that you have data consistency, right? You change the title, it changes in listings as well. As I said, it requires you to write some kind of code, and that would be for the editors, because that's the people who actually use it. We can build really fancy stuff, and we could just as well do that in pure HTML. But at some point, for 90% of the stuff that's not a personal web page, someone else will have to come in and change the content. And this isn't a good option then. However, we can do a dynamic system, a full CMS system. You can pick, I have a couple of examples here, Umbraco, WordPress, SiteVision, yeah, you name it. You can use pretty much anything you know or want. Use the full system, host it somewhere. Put it, I don't know, local machine, home lab, Set up a scheduled task, crawl it, upload the result, and go with that. So with that said, this is going quite quickly. Let's have a quick look at some code. So first of all, we look here. We've seen this view a couple of times today. If we scroll down, you might notice this thing here. It says custom. Everyone so far has been talking about this and this and this and this and everything. Or they've been talking about static site generators. We also have this. That's pure HTML. So if we have a look here, I'm going to run this application real quick. And it's just going to be a really simple web page, right? I hope, if it starts. Where did you go? Let's use .NET Watch instead. Jump up here, .NET Watch. We're building, everything is up to date. And we have my personal web page. This is Blazor, because I like Blazor. It's a nice way of working. So we have some posts. They're not very interesting at the moment. Some data, a normal website, right? This site has an admin interface, which is also extremely simple. So we have a new post, during demo. You can add a slug, probably demo post. And let's add some content. This is a short post I'm showing during a SWA demo. Let's save that. And this page on the admin side is very not done. But yeah, we have a new post during demo here, which we can jump in and read. It doesn't contain a whole lot of stuff. We can move to previous and the next. Just jump around, look at things. So that's fairly simple, right? And I shouldn't have closed that. So let's run .NET Watch again. Now there's a tiny little tool called vget, which is an open source tool to get web pages, more or less. It gets websites and downloads the content. So if I just open this folder, let's go in there. Let's go to the bin. Let's go to debug. Let's go to net 8.0. So we have a website here, right? And that's the one that's running. Let's jump out to here. Let's create a temporary directory. Now, here's a thing that I need to do because I'm on Windows, and we will cover that in just a moment. But I need to jump into here and grab the exe for this. Generally, you don't want to do that. but this is a demo, and I'll go over why I have that as a separate exe in a moment. We can do bget, and we'll go over some switches on this, some arguments. So we have -r. -r tells it to do this recursively, follow links. Otherwise, I can actually run this without that. I just need the URL. Let's grab that, post that. And I need a // and I believe an exe. No, first of all, I need cd temp. Let's do just a website. There, bang. Very fast, right? So you just dumped an index.html file in here. And if we have a look at that page, let's jump out a step into temp. This doesn't look very interesting, but if you know HTML, you might realize what's going on. We got the index. We got no styles, no images, no nothing. So let's add a flag to do this recursively. bget.exe -r, and the URL. And I still need that. Bang. Now it went in and got everything that links to. So we got a folder now as well. So we got HTML here, we got framework, got in, we got data, which means that if we visit this page, we get the exact same thing. And why is that? Well, if we have a quick look in the console, you can see that I'm getting a whole bunch of 404s on all of these. And the reason for that is that this uses absolute URLs. And that means you can't browse it locally. I will open up the head. As you can see, it uses URLs based on the root. Right now, that would be j:. So this doesn't work, but we can see that all of the files exist here. We have the styles that are compiled. We have the separate style. We have images. It looks like it might be all right. And apparently it jumped back to the start. No, we're there. Let's have a look at some code. So we want to host this because we don't want to have to run it in debug mode every single time that we want to access it, right? So we have a couple of options. We can host it on a workstation. Just hit F5, run it, run the tool, you're done. But you won't get any scheduling, but it can't get any simpler at all. It's free, just go. If you have a home lab, you can use that. But first of all, that requires a home lab. That requires you knowing how to set this up. It's free-ish. I mean, the home lab isn't free, but it's complicated. But there is another quite good option. Heard of this? It's the full fat app service that we're not talking about today. The thing is that a free app service is, calling it slow would be an understatement. It is very slow, especially when you try to hit it with any kind of load. But we don't need to care about that. We're running a crawler, right? If it takes a while for it to run, doesn't matter. We want to get HTML out so we can upload that to our SWA. So you set it up. You make sure that when you do the code updates, you push that up to your app service and you run it. You can put it, you can put your data anywhere. I would put it in blob storage or in Cosmos, but it doesn't matter. Same thing here. The example I have uses file storage, and it preloads every single post in the entire application and then keeps those cached. So what does it matter? How many megabytes do you think my posts are going to be? If I have them loaded already, that doesn't matter either. If I'm getting 1,000 hits and I'm hitting the file system every single time and loading every file just to do a search, that's a very bad idea. But here, doesn't matter. Speed doesn't matter. So let's have a look at a small tool, shall we? So here's my little web page. And here is really where you shouldn't do it this way. If you have Blazor, if you're doing Blazor, I'm doing Blazor, there's a really good package you can download that will generate your static HTML when you run it, when you publish the page, right? Down here, we have a renderer. So if we jump in there, so you have the folder, the target URL for the site, a couple of stage folder, I get repo folder. Yeah. So what we're going to do first is we're going to prepare our folders. First, we're going to make sure that we can get the source URL so we know that the web server is up. We're going to make sure that our target folder is gone. And the reason that we do a delete and then a create is to make sure that it's 100% empty, right? We don't want any data in there when we start. We're going to run vget, and we're going to use a couple of switches on this. So we'll have recursive, just like we did before. We don't want a max depth. Normally, I think it's 4 or 5 levels in, and then it'll stop. We want the entire site, right? Doesn't matter if it's hundreds of category pages or old post pages in. We want everything. If we have files in our stage directory, only download the new ones. And this one is a bit weird, but I will show you why we want that. If we have a look here, I'll delete the index page here because that was from the first test. You see here, so it creates a folder for the site. We don't want that. Instead, we're running it in the target folder as the working directory. So nh here will tell it to not create a source directory. And then we get the source URL. After that, we render the page. Or rather, that is rendering the page. So we're downloading everything. This you run on a schedule. It allows you to do timed releases. If I have a published at some later date entry, by running this daily, I will post it on that date because it'll update on my dynamic site. It's not easy to do locally because that requires you to have your local computer on and having the application on. That's why it's a good idea to either have it in the home lab, which is what I'm doing, or putting it on Azure Web Apps or App Service. You can then use an Azure function, which runs on a timer, or you can use a cron job inside of a Docker container or the task scheduler on a server, like a Windows server. There are tons of options here. And that was the wrong button. There. Actually, now that we're here, let's jump back here. Let's jump on over to the code again. So we have our site. That's not the one we want, and that's not the one we want. So we have new post during demo there. Now is my test. So if we have a look here, this is the live test, but the website, right? So we open this. You can see that that doesn't exist here. So we have a difference in the websites. So let's have a look at this application. Let's just go in, right click, debug, start new instance. That's how long it takes. We are now on GitHub because I want GitHub to be my my history. I want to be able to go back there, see what did I do previously. I can push this to a private GitHub repo. At the moment, it's public. It's going to be private later. But this generated all of the posts, all of the data that we needed, and it pushed it to GitHub. And what do you think happens once we hit GitHub? Well, we jump on over to the tool in here. We have stage. This is where we're pushing our rendering to. The next step, or sorry, a couple of steps in, because we're going to cover a few more, do a publish. So we clean our Git folder. This is a helper because it actually does a couple of weird things. It leaves gitignore and Git folders and GitHub folders and stuff like that. But it deletes all of the data files, right? It copies the contents from stage over there, and it does a git add. That applies all the changes. Does a commit, does a push. Again, don't do it this way, please. Use the CLI, use the APIs that are available. I don't want this to be .NET specific, not the tool that I'm doing here, and also not the site. So this should be very generic. You could do this entire thing using a PowerShell script. I have a couple of people who would 100% be doing this in a PowerShell script. Start website, do a crawl, make it happen, right? So now we are uploaded. Let's see if this has updated yet. Oh, we've got a new post during demo. So that's how long that took. And we still have the functionality. We can jump back and forth. We have a page that's not linked in right now, though. So if we have a look at, I think it's just blog is the endpoint. If I go to the same page here, see how this works, but this doesn't. So what's the big difference here? Well, here it goes straight to the web application. Over here, it tries to find the file. Does that file exist? Go to stage. There's no blog folder here. That's because that page specifically isn't linked from anywhere. And if we have a look at our manual rendering method here, we have syshelper run process. It's commented out right now, but this is where you'd fix that. You'd add specific pages that are not linked from anywhere. In this case, I mean, the blog folder or the blog page, which is the listing page, will be linked to, but right now it isn't, so it isn't picked up. But in the manual rendering, which you should run after running the render itself, I mean, do the manual things. Fix up your robots. Stuff like that. So let's see, now we're going to head back here. So how about re-adding dynamic to your static? What do I mean by that? So you have a dynamic web page, in this case built using Blazor, and we want to add dynamic content to that on static web apps. How do we do that? What am I even talking about? Well, you saw search results there, for example. Maybe we want to add a search to this personal site. Maybe we want to add a comment field. Maybe we want to build our own visit counter or whatever. In this case, Blazor has a really nice feature called render mode. So the site itself that we're just looking at is rendered with static page rendering. Can't even remember the name. Let's have a look, see if I can find it. go to app right there. No, that's not it. Let's go to roots. Yeah, notice what's missing. There's no render mode here. Without the render mode, it runs using static site rendering. So it creates the HTML. It's just like any other engine. Could have done this using eraser pages. But I want to keep everything in Blazor. But by adding, since we can mix render modes now, I can add components with the WebAssembly render mode. You can't use server, obviously, since we won't have a server. But WebAssembly will run on the client, not for Google, not for any search engine, but for our user. And I don't think we need our search results or our comments or our page view counters or whatever to be indexed by Google, right? You can find all those pages some other way. So we use Blazor and we re-add that, or we use Angular or TypeScript or React or plain old JavaScript. Just script it yourself. It delivers the scripts. You can run them at runtime. But then it doesn't work because we're not running the scripts, right? What Blazor does when it runs is it reads one file, one JavaScript file. That file, in turn, when it runs, reads and loads a whole bunch of other files. Those won't come on over because vget doesn't see them. So we have a couple of files that are missing. We have our framework folder. We have favicons, robots, sitemap, most probably. So what do we want to do then? Well, let's jump on over here. So we created our robots here, and we downloaded our search results manually. So here, you would also download, for example, everything from, no, I can't do it there. Never mind. Down here in post-process, though. Right now, I'm building a sitemap here. I'm listing the files in my target folder, which would be my stage. I'm searching all the directories. I'm doing it recursively. And I'm building a sitemap from. It's as simple as that, really. I save them with a normal format, post the URL set end, push up the sitemap. Here, I can also go in, copy over the entire framework folder, which contains all of the Blazor files, all of the .NET specific things, and just add that. The reason I can't do this directly from the web server, though, is that Blazor adds a nonce to all the file names, just to make sure that they're always updated when you recompile and rebuild. I haven't been able to crack that yet. I haven't figured out how the nonce works. So I just copy the entire folder over. But that means that I have my framework folder. That means that I have my WebAssembly logic. And I can run that. That was the wrong button. There we go. So I have my robots file. I have my framework file. I have everything, which means I can run dynamic content on there. So this was the post-processing. We handled the missing files. We build up a sitemap. We take all our scripts, style sheets. We do post-processing on that. You know, the good old minifier, right? Push everything together into maybe a single CSS file. Can compress images. We can do pretty much everything that we want here. And that's it, unfortunately. This was fairly quick. So this is where you can find me at the moment. I'm on Twitch every week, sometimes multiple times a week. I'm on GitHub. I'm on X. I'm on LinkedIn. And I try to be around answering questions whenever people have them. And if anyone actually wants to look at this code, I can definitely upload it, share it wherever. Again, do not do it this way. This is a bit of a, guide on how to do it 100% manually. But yeah, that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I said there's stuff in there that I thought was okay. That sounds bad. It sounded better in my head. So there's stuff in there that I found really interesting. Not there's stuff in there that I found really interesting, but there's stuff in there that I found extra interesting. That sounds better. Taking the dynamic out, that I was expecting you to do, but then putting the dynamic back at the end, so the search functionality and things like that still work. That is cool.
Yeah, and it just works. I mean, you remove everything that the search engines won't be able to find. So you add that as static, but I mean, you don't want to index the search results.
No.
So you can always re-add that logic. We have to remember that you need to copy over the files that you want to have there as well, right? Because when you run the WASM, the WebAssembly, that can't do any advanced logic really. So that should point over to a URL somehow, which will also do the logic, call down into a Azure function or an external API or wherever, and then running from there.
I really love that flow. It's it's something that I need to look at for my website. Oh, by the way, I hope this sounds okay. I was getting frustrated and strangled from all of the cables, and I was in a little bit of pain from my ears, so I had to switch back to the trusty cat's ears and the other microphone.
Sounds fine.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Changing it on the fly is always fun. But yeah, my blog is hosted in WASM on a static web app. And I knew before I started, not good for SEO.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dukasoff. It sounds good. The setup does work sometimes. But I decided to do it that way anyway, just because I was really launching it more to play with Blazor than I was to do anything that I was expecting to get lots of hits on Google.
Yeah.
But I think
when you do it, because I know that you use Medium as your data source as well.
Dev.2.
Oh, Dev.2, yeah. But you run into the canonical issue there.
You can
because the content is available in 2 places.
Yeah.
And that will hit your SEO score as well.
You can fix that in Dev.2. You can set the canonical URL to be, you can point it to whichever one you want to be leading.
Gotcha.
So that one should kind of be okay.
Yeah.
But it was more the
Medium. I know that Medium does not allow you to do that. They want to be the authority.
Right. Yeah. Dev.2 is nicer than that, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd never considered this way of doing it. I ran a few things and kind of hit issues with it in the past, and it's something I need to pick up again. But I'm going to be looking at this to see what I can do to pick it up and use this. And there was a few things that I was thinking of as we went through. We got one question in the chat that I'm going to get to in a second. You say that you could do all of this with a PowerShell script.
Yes.
And something I was wondering, rather than doing this and committing it to a GitHub repo, I don't know if it's better or worse. I'm just wondering if it's possible, because that's what we do as developers. We try and figure out what's impossible. Yep. Could you just do all of this inside the pipeline and then just deploy directly from the pipeline rather than porting it
100%.
to...
100%. I mean, we have the CLI tools, if nothing else. We can call those directly from our application or from our script or our bash script or PowerShell or whatever you want to run. Or there are also APIs. Azure has a really good track record. I'm not exactly sure about SWAs, but previously, all new features from, I think, the last 10 years or something has been API, CLI, GUI, in that order. So you could always access new features via the API first. And that
SWA
means
broke
that
that
there
mold
should
a
be
little
APIs
bit,
out there.
but it's there now.
Yeah. So you could use the APIs to push this up to static web apps. I put it on GitHub because I want the changelog on there.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I can always, oh crap, something happened. I can always just go back, push a new one up from there because the actual deploy script is in my GitHub workflow.
Yeah. Easy fallback is always a good one.
Exactly.
Okay, then the question that we had is from Full Snable.
Yeah.
Why is your app services slow? You said in the beginning of the talk,
Yeah.
you can use a free app service for this. It's really slow, but
The keyword there is free. You get those 60 minutes of compute a day, I think. But that is slow compute. I've tried doing advanced stuff on app service on the free tier, and it's slightly painful.
Yeah.
If you want to run a dynamic site and just skip SWA at all, maybe for a blog it'll work. But if you do anything more advanced, you will quickly run into, a big, what's the word? Yeah, you'll be bogged down very quickly. But when you're doing a crawl, it doesn't matter. And since you're doing it yourself, I mean, it won't affect your scores or anything. It'll be once Google sees it or a search engine sees it, it'll be snappy.
Yeah, that's just going to be the HTML inside of the static web app.
Yeah, exactly. So if a browse or a crawl takes an hour, doesn't matter. I think you'll have issues running an Azure function to crawl it for an hour. That might be an entirely different problem, but it's doable.
It's doable.
And as I said, in my case, I'm hosting it on my home lab, but not everyone has a home lab. So.
Yeah, I think the app service is a nice second option to use there. And like I say, the free one, you do only get that 60 minutes of commute. It's not the fastest. And I think that's the reason why using something like Blazor directly, because I love the idea of using Blazor as of .NET 8, where you have the pre-rendering, the server-side interaction, and then the client-side interaction. So it goes from fastest to slowest, and you get that instant response for your users.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to run that on a production app service, I believe the V3P0s, that's about the cheapest you can get for a production level app service. And they're like €50 a month.
Yeah.
Which is...
I mean, as soon as I think there's a dev test level that you're actually allowed to use for production. That's about €20, I think.
Okay.
But you don't want to run that in production, is my experience. If you want to have a site on app services that is fast, you want to be on the 50 or 60 euro tier.
Yeah. And, let's face it, looking at my background, 50 or 60 euros a month, that seriously eats into your Lego budget.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like one kid a month, maybe half a kid.
Yeah. So it's like,
it adds up.
Using it from the static web apps.
I can afford €50. That's not the issue. The issue is that that's €600 a year.
Yeah.
And we're trying to talk about free options right now.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And the last thing that I wanted to ask you is, you were using some command line tools and things like that. Do you have any links or anything like that we can throw into the chat so that people can
I just remembered a thing that is fairly good here. I had to use the wget tool, right? I had to have the exe.
Yep.
That's because I'm on Windows.
Oh.
On Linux, it's bundled. So
I'm not opening up a terminal right now at all.
Yeah. No, not at all. If I think it's bundled at least, or you can just apt-get it, and then it's on your.
Yes. Do you know the really cool one?
What?
If you run this as a Linux workload under the WSL, you have it available.
Yeah. Yep. And if you're a Windows person like me, it's also available in Docker.
Right.
So you could
Yes.
run this entire deploy script in a Docker image, which you can then call from, for example, your Azure DevOps or whatever. So you can upload, or GitHub, you can upload your posts,
Yeah.
your post files in my case, because it's on the file system, as I said. I can upload that to a private repo on GitHub.
Yeah.
That will trigger a workflow that will run the site, crawl the site, push it up to SWA. So I don't need to run the tool locally, but you do want to schedule it as well, just to be able to run this and get updates.
Yeah.
Because if I set,
Absolutely.
a post to update in 3 days,
Yeah.
then
But
I can't
that's
just forget it if I run it that way. But again, you can run a Docker image.
yes.
Spin
I've
up a
just got
container
to
and run it.
interrupt you here because the chat's been awesome right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, from Fuel Snowball, I thought that Google fixed all SEO just by taking all the traffic for themselves now.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just showing that little blurb up there with like, this is what I found, and that was on a page somewhere, but that
I'm
still
not
doesn't
gonna
work
give you
because
the
they can't see you.
page. Oh yeah. If slow, throw money.
Yeah, that's absolutely a way of doing it. It works.
Yeah, absolutely. And well,
Yeah.
one line's feeling pretty slow right now, so they're open to have money thrown at them. That works too.
One line is a wonderful human being,
Oh.
or a lion, one of them.
And then lastly, because I just quite this one, I can't afford computers that run Docker, but that's what Pies are for.
Exactly. And that could be your home lab. You can build a small home lab on a Pi. Or in my case, I think I have 5 of them running around. Because you can never find one of your pies when you need a pie. So you buy a new pie and you find the old pie.
Build more pies.
Yeah, yeah.
And yes.
We have our friend here. Exactly. I was just going to say that. A dear friend of us, or ours, built a cluster of pies.
Yeah.
And he's right here.
And yeah, Dukesoft, they ate their pie.
Yeah.
Which, it being Halloween, I should really have some pumpkin pie here and I should be eating it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like pumpkin pie. I'm a horrible human being.
It's Halloween, you don't have a choice.
True.
And Nedborg, love Eric. It was a really cool talk. It's
thank you. I need to slow it down a bit, I think. But it's the first time I did it, so
yeah. It's always fun trying out new talks. But I think the thing that I just love is what we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. It's taking something, just seeing what you can throw at it, using it not necessarily in the way that it's designed to be used, both with the injecting your Blazor into your static site and getting your static content out there and just seeing what you can do. And I just think that's nicely inspirational for people to think, wow, okay, what can I do then? And go out and try stuff for themselves.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned that was one of those, cool things. The fact that you can add dynamic content back.
Yeah.
And in this case, I could use Blazor to render my site. And then I could use Angular to do the search feature.
Yes.
Right? There's no limitation there. I love the fact that I can just use the same component structure, just set the render mode on something, and then hands off.
I just had a thought. So the other talk I've got to write soon, and one of the things I've been working on at work, you could make a web component using Angular or Vue or something like that, and you could put that on your page.
Definitely.
And then you don't need any frameworks or anything. You just need to load that one JavaScript. And then you just put a tag on your page and do it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the fact that I don't have anywhere near enough time to play with this, I could see me playing for hours doing this.
Yeah. But the driver of innovation is boredom.
Yes. Unfortunately, I don't have that issue right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully at some point it's going to come back. Right now it's I might be 2 chapters behind on my book, so this weekend might be taking care of writing.
Yeah. You can do it. I believe in you.
Thank you. And that was
Yeah.
an awesome talk. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I
Thank
guess
you.
on that note, we are going to take another 10-minute break or so, coming up to our last session of the day. I've had so much fun today. This has been...
It's been
when I
great.
first started talking to Jessica about this before the summer, I didn't know what it was going to be, but I have just enjoyed it so much. It's been wonderful. And we're going to close with the amazing C# Fritz talking to us about his experiences running Cliptop. So be back here, 8 o'clock Central European time.
You just watched how not to do things. Now we're going into a person explaining how to do things. Yeah.
So hang around for that. Be back, I say, in 10-15 minutes. And Jeff's going to give us an awesome session to end the day. And we'll see you all then.
See you all soon. Bye.